true power doesn't come from accumulating. True power comes from giving. And so you look at the universe, you look at how much energy exists in the universe. There's so much energy, right? And so why do we think that there's so little for us to have and to give? With so much energy in the universe, there's abundance, that when we believe in abundance, there's plenty for us and even more to share.
Top leaders, meaningful conversation, actionable advice, bulldoze complacency, ignite inspiration, create impact. Produced by Southwestern family of companies. This is the Action Catalyst.
If you're not familiar with Jon, I mean, literally his stories, his principles, his strategies are used by NFL teams, NBA teams, Fortune 500 companies, hospitals, school districts, nonprofits. He is the author of the Wall Street Journal bestseller, The Energy Bus. And so Jon agreed to share with us a little bit about his new book, The Carpenter. So Jon Gordon, Jon, thank you for being here. So one of the things I love about your style, like your stories. Why do you write in sort of this story format or parables? Where did that come from? How did that develop? Why do you do that?
I believe I was inspired by stories as well. When my mom before she passed away, she gave me a book called The Greatest Salesman, and so that was a same book really had an impact on me. And Who Moved My Cheese and fables like that, and The 1 Minute Manager. Those were books that were stories and fables and taught lessons through the story. So I originally wrote 2 how-to books before I started writing fables. You haven't heard of those books because they didn't do very well. And I was at a book fair, and I had like 5 people in line, and the guy next to me wrote a book called Marley and Me. Remember that book?
Yeah, the movie.
Yeah, Jon Gordon. Well, Jon next to me, and he had the line out the door, down the block, hundreds of people. And I remember thinking, you know what? I should write a story. And from that moment on, I felt compelled to write stories. I never wrote a story before. The Energy Bus was the first story I wrote. It was really well received, and I realized that was my voice. That was the kind of book that I was meant to write. And those were the books that inspired me, and I was meant to write those kind of books that inspired others.
One concept that I love is a concept that you introduced called energy vampires.
Well, the first talk I ever gave, I talked about energy vampires, people who suck the life and energy right out of you. And it was so well received. When I talk about energy vampires now, everyone gets an image of someone who's an energy vampire in their life. It's iconic. I don't even have to explain what an energy vampire is. People just know right away, right?
Yeah.
And so it's such a compelling kind of image. And when I was writing The Energy Bus, I believe that it's what most people have resonated with. That message that there are negative people who will hold us back. There are negative people that will sabotage our team. And I have had NFL coaches tell me, CEOs tell me that I learned that I had to deal with the negativity. I would see it, I would recognize it, but I wouldn't deal with it. The Energy Bus has allowed people to have a framework and a dialogue to call people out and say, you are being an energy vampire, you're sabotaging us, and to the entire organization to say, we're not going to allow negativity to sabotage us and the work that we're here to do. And so as a person who's striving for success as well, you can't allow those energy vampires if you're in sales, if you're coaching salespeople, if you're facing rejection and people who are negative, you have to overcome that negativity yourself. So it relates to people who are trying to build their career, it relates to people who are trying to build teams, and also people who are trying to build organizations. I mean, I had energy vampires in my life. People said, you can't do it, you're not going to make it. And I've learned that our positive energy, our belief, and our faith must be greater than all the certainty and doubt. Not everyone is going to get on your bus. Don't let the energy vampires sabotage your ride. Post that sign that says, no energy vampires allowed. And always remember what Gandhi said. He said, I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet, and neither should you.
So turning our attention to The Carpenter, where did sort of the inspiration come from?
Well, I had a carpenter come to do some work in my home, and he was slammed. And he was even during the recession. And I said, how are you so busy during the recession? He just said, well, my clients know that I do great work. And it hit me. This is a guy who really cared about his work. He cared about his clients. He put everything he had into every project. So he was always busy. The average carpenter wasn't busy during this time, but he was. And the premise was, when you care, you stand out in a world where most don't care. Now, the book evolved from that as I started writing the story. Different ideas started coming to me. Principles started coming to me. And really, it's the greatest success strategies of all. I believe it's probably the best book I've written. Everyone who's read it says it's the best book. People have loved it so far. I've had about 500 people just read it. The feedback has been incredible. I've had some NFL coaches read it, some CEOs read it, some different salespeople read it, and it seems to resonate with everyone because these 3 strategies are love, serve, and care. And if you love what you do, you love others, you serve people, and you care about the work you do, you will stand out. So I obviously delve deeper into all of that in the book, but it's a great message, and the story is compelling about a guy and his wife who are trying to build their business, and they use these principles to build it.
Can you kind of speak to the importance of slowing down, taking rest, creating margin, meanwhile sort of balancing that with the drive to produce results in your life?
The reason why we're so busy and stressed is because of fear. Fear is causing us to work at this rapid pace, to feel like we're not going to be successful unless we go. And what the Carpenter teaches is if you do everything with love, you'll be so much more powerful. So it's about slowing down, realizing the fear that is driving you, love what you do, love your customers, take time to recharge and rest, don't operate out of this fear, and then you'll actually slow down to produce more. You'll actually be more productive because you'll be working smarter, you'll be delegating better, you'll be spending more time with your clients, improving your relationships by loving, serving, and caring. And from doing that, your customers will work for you. You'll be able to work less, but accomplish more when you're operating out of this love instead of fear. Busyness and stress, I see worry today as the biggest enemy of great leadership, great teamwork, great customer service, and great sales. When you're busy and stressed, you're operating out of fear, and you're activating the reptilian part of your brain. You know what I mean by reptiles? They'll never make a good pet. They're all about survival. A reptile wants to eat you. Well, when we're busy and stressed, we're all about survival. We're not trying to thrive. We're not helping others thrive. We're thinking, how can I get through the day without blowing a gasket? So I'm trying to get people from moving from this fear-based, limited mindset, stress, weak energy to this more powerful energy of love, of gratitude, of serving, of caring, and power. And when you do that, you'll be so much more powerful. The Greatest Salesman, that book really inspired me. As I wrote this book, I was thinking actually of that book, and I want this to be like a modern day version of that that helps people to live and work in such a way that will make a difference. I mean, I speak to a lot of salespeople, and I know that a lot of the top salespeople have this kind of mindset. I mean, the ones who have sustained success. You can be great for a year, but these are the principles that are going to cause you to have sustained success, and that's what this is all about. So it's not about being successful for 1 year.
Yeah.
It's about being successful over time. And so people say, yeah, but John, you don't know how hard I have to work. No, I do know how hard you have to work. I know how hard I have to work to accomplish what I need to accomplish, but I also have learned that I actually accomplish more when I live these principles.
How do you think this concept of grace ties into somebody's ability to sell, lead, or influence other people in general?
Well, I think it really applies to the law of generosity. I mean, the more you give, the more you actually receive to have to give away. And so when you're giving, you become a conduit for all the good that wants to happen in the world. You become a conductor. I wrote about this week in my newsletter. There are resistors and there are conductors in the electrical world. Resistors, they hold on to their electrons, so they only have a limited power. But conductors actually freely give away their electrons, so their power comes from the current that moves through it. And so the more we're open to just being a giving person and giving away, the more this greater power moves through us and allows us to become a greater power source in the world. The more you give, it just comes back to you. And I don't know how it works, but I know it does. I know the more I give away, it's amazing how many times it just comes back to me. The more we give, I get so much charity now, my wife and I do, and it's just amazing how it just seems like we just have more to give, and so then we give even more away, and you think it would work the other way, but it doesn't. The more you give, and you don't expect anything in return, that's when things come back to you tenfold, but then you just keep on giving, you keep on supporting. So, like, my goal, honestly, I want my books to do so well, I want to be so successful that I can give away so much to the world, so much that people need, so much to the poor, so much to the homeless. I want to build schools in Africa. I want to help Homes for Hope build homes in Mexico. I want to have all these different organizations do what they're doing. to make an impact. And honestly, that's my hope, is to give. So I want to give my life away, because you know what? True power doesn't come from accumulating. True power comes from giving.
Amen.
I heard a great quote by a pastor the other day. He said, you can't outgive God. And so you look at the universe, you look at how much energy exists in the universe. There's so much energy, right? And so why do we think that there's so little for us to have and to give? With so much energy in the universe, there's abundance, that when we believe in abundance, there's plenty for us and even more to share with everyone else.
Now, here's an interesting sort of dichotomy. So, there's this power in giving, and yet there's sort of this seeming contradiction about don't give out of obligation. So can you just kind of expand on that lesson and kind of clarify the distinction for us?
Well, it's about giving with a cheerful heart. And so it's about giving with a loving heart. You're giving to give, not out of obligation. You're not giving because you feel like you have to. You're giving because you want to, because you want to help others. So it's a very selfless kind of giving. It's a very generous kind of giving. And that's the kind of giving you give. So in your life, when you live in such a way, it comes back to you. In the energy bus, I call it being a love magnet. The more love you put out there, share the love comes back to you. And the best salespeople I've ever met, they're love magnets. They love their clients. They're just such cheerful people. They got great hearts. They give out of that heart. And it's amazing how they're just so successful as a result of that. And so, to me, that's the thing. You're not giving out of obligation. You're giving because you want to, not because you have to. And you're giving out a true heart. When April 15th came, I had to pay my taxes. I had to admit, I was not very cheerful. I felt like I wasn't giving out of obligation. I felt like it was being taken from me.
Yeah.
I don't think the government will be very wise with a lot of my money. I feel like they can be much more efficient. But when I give to the charities I give, and I had my kids, for instance, write out checks the other day. We wrote out to, several homeless shelters and other things that we were giving money to. It just felt so good to do that with them and have them write the checks and give it away. That felt great. But I didn't enjoy giving out of the application of the taxes. And a funny story that the IRS called me, and they said, they called my assistant and they said, we want to see you, Jon Gordon. I'm like, oh my God, what do they want to talk to me for? I'm always honest. What have I done? I don't think I've done anything. And so they said, well, they want to talk to you. And I was away, so I called them back on Monday. And they said, oh, Jon Gordon? I said, yes. How can I help you? They said, you're probably wondering why we're calling. I said, yes. They said, we want you to speak to our managers.
Oh, gosh.
We want them to have more positive energy.
Oh, my gosh.
I said, the IRS, you want them to have more positive energy? They said, yes. They said, how much would you charge for something like that? So I had to think for a second. I said, well, whatever I normally charge, I'll have to add 30% to take it out in taxes. And then she said, that's okay. We'll just take 30% of that. She said, you'll never win, John. You'll never win.
That is so funny.
Generosity is also generosity of spirit, and it's love, and it's compliments, and it's hugs, and it's also time and energy and volunteering. So there's so many ways that we can be generous. And so you may not give money, but you might give some of your service. You might give some of your time. My newsletter this week was about a guy who actually started giving away some of his photography services and helping others in need. Next thing you know, he gets a huge job from Disney to do a big photo shoot for them that takes him all over the world. The minute he started giving, he gets this opportunity from Disney. It was incredible.
Jon, thank you for giving us your time and your insight, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're a blessing to the world, and it's an honor to have you here, and I appreciate you pouring into us.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. And to stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast and on Twitter at Catalyst_Action. And thanks for listening.